Hey guys, Knight here. Today I'm going to take a bit of time here to go ahead and create a user requested video that generally deals with creating a Sorcerer character for the Log Horizon TRPG. I won't be going too much into sort of the races you can pick, um, but I will be going into basically generally what you want to look for in terms of abilities for a damage dealing class in the Log Horizon TRPG, due to how the game itself focuses on the golden triangle of many MMORPGs, such as the tank, healer, and DPS. There's certain roles that you'll be ending up wanting to fulfill, and I'm going to try to help you focus on those goals to make your basic gameplay very smooth, enjoyable. One thing for sure I want to point out is that this shouldn't really be like a holy gospel. You guys should be having a lot of time to sort of experiment with things and mess around with things on your own. This is just sort of going to give you sort of the basics that I tend to look for in any player, when it comes to just making sure that you have a well-rounded character. I've seen a lot of really crazy and cool builds done in the past couple of years with this game. That the system really has a lot you can do with it. Really interesting. One of the interesting things to remember here is that you can totally swap your skills out in between sessions. So what this means is, say you finish your first quest and you're back in town, and then a week passes by until your next game. You can actually change out your skills with anything else, from your the common tab, the racial tab for the race you are, the archetype, so mage, and then sorcerer, which is the class. So you can change out and swap around your skills. The only time you really wouldn't be able to like grab a skill would be if it had like a limitation. See, like a Burning Stake 2 says acquired with character rank 11 or higher. So if you're not character rank 11 already, you won't be able to grab that one. But you can swap out skills, like one for one, with the other skills that you uh, basically, if you don't like or something like that, swap them out. So plenty of time to play around, um, plenty of experimentation to be done. And I feel like there's actually a lot of stuff here that even I, in my time spent with the system, haven't really figured out with some cool combos. Especially if you include things like over skills, which are uh, player-made abilities that the GM usually has a little bit of a say on. But those really can add a lot of flavor and customization to your character and can make combos work even better, with different abilities that are just in the game. Anyway, before I ramble too much, let me go on to the goals that you're looking to do as a damage dealer. There's three main goals. One, your damage dealer. You're gonna want to do damage. That's the main goal right there. Second goal is to stay alive. If you're dead, you're doing no damage. Simple as that. And the third one is to assist the team. Right? You've got four other, maybe five other people with you in the team. You could even run with a bigger party than that. You might even have like a raid scenario going on. The rules for that are in this game. If you have any of that, you definitely want to be able to assist the team with any sort of like general ability, or even in mid combat, anything you can do to help other people out in addition to doing your own main goal is swell. All right, so when you're doing damage, what are you looking for, right? In order to do damage, how do we achieve this? Well, first off, we need to be able to hit the mob. So something like Ultimagica, which gives us one extra hit die, that helps us out a lot. And then the other thing is what boosts our damage. And specifically, what boosts our average damage, right? In this game, you're going to see a lot of things that just add extra hit die and stuff like that, and add extra attack die to your damage. When it comes to picking skills, I like to look at the average damage you're going to get out of something like that. For example, if a skill says that you're going to get 3 extra damage from something, and a skill says you're going to get 1d6 extra damage from something, you have to look at the averages of both of those, right? So the one that's just going to give you 3 is going to give you 3 all the time, right? So its average is just 3. The other one, which is a 1d6, an average of that is going to be a 3. So both of those are going to give you the same amount of damage on average, except the one that always gives you 3 is going to be more consistent. So in these early levels, you have to decide whether you want to be more consistent or you want to try to see big numbers. Now, depending on your group, you might have more success with either option. In my opinion, if you're running with a group that you don't know and you don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to play or anything, consistency is key. So having abilities that aren't going to be super random will help you out the most. Stuff like enhanced code and robust battery, that's kind of the stuff you're looking for. I'll go ahead and go over here to show you what they do. So robust battery takes your move action, but gives you 5 extra bonus damage to your magic attack, and it doesn't cost you any hate. Stuff like, let me go to the mage tree here. Stuff like enhanced code on the miner will give you 3 extra magic damage. Okay? So you're looking at stuff like this, you're noticing it doesn't cost any hate. That is part 2. Part 2 is staying alive, right? If you end up using a lot of abilities that boost your damage, and then they end up increasing your hate, what you're going to find is that you're going to get targeted by a lot more mobs. Generally, the GM has the final say on what the mobs are going to attack, and if they decide to attack somebody that's below hate top, you will enjoy a +2 bonus to dodge. But generally, as a damage dealer, you're not going to have the best defenses in the world. And getting hit by 3 or 4 enemies after blowing up some mobs for like crazy amounts of damage is not conducive to your second goal or your first goal. So, in order to stay alive, keep your hate low. And I'm going to recommend some abilities later on for the second half of this video that should help you with this goal a lot more, because I feel like the hate system is such a big part of this game, and a lot of people don't really grasp that part of it. Alright, so for assist team, when you're assisting the team, you'll find most of these abilities under the general skill. So that's these little purple kind of colored skills here. So retentive memory here, retentive memory, that's going to get you down here. +1d 6 bonus to knowledge checks. Now again, this is something where it's similar to do you want to get more consistency out of your rolls, or do you want to hit that knowledge check really hard? The reason I went with retentive memory for this beginner one here is because down here I went ahead and I picked up some artisan's glasses, which helps boost up the other int roll you're going to be seeing here. You've got analyze and knowledge for both int rolls, and as a sorcerer you're going to have high int anyway. So I figure that I can go ahead and not take a training here and maybe take it later down the road for this first level one. With this, I have an average of +3, which is similar to boosting up a training. The training would give you +3 base, which would then increase your bonus to that roll by like a +1. So it helps out both knowledge and analyze, but retentive memory gives you an average of 3, which is a little bit more than the training would give you. Plus, if you look at the artisan's glasses give you the exact same bonus that training would give you for analyze, in that it's a +1, and it costs money instead of a skill point. So with this retentive memory, I think that's a better choice for right now. And then later on down the line, you can grab some more training skills at your leisure, probably some damage increasing training or some maybe assist team trainings. Note here that at the beginning you have a maximum of 2 training skills you can take, and this current build doesn't take any training. So for equipment, very basic stuff here. Nothing enchanted, nothing from the magical items list. I think I have a video currently about how to enchant magic items. Certain classes I think perform better starting out with magic items that are enchanted, spending more money on them. In this situation, I think you'll be fine, more than fine with this setup right here. You start out with Adventurous Kit Sandwich by default, but having 2 beef stew to really help you out is something that I think goes overlooked more often than not. Everybody's so in love with enchanting their gear in my games that when they start off at level 1, most of the time they end up losing like 50, 60 health from fatigue. And that's something that's sort of a hidden cost that you really don't think about until you start getting hit with it. I might have talked about fatigue in another video, but very quickly, fatigue is basically what happens when you are basically toughing it in the wild, traversing the wilderness, or if you're like fast traveling from place to place, you could also encounter fatigue like that. Failing skill checks might incur some fatigue. Maybe you set off like a gas trap that made you really drowsy or something. That's some fatigue right there, and fatigue will lower your maximum health. That's really not conducive to goal number 2, which is stay alive. You want your max health as high as possible, so keeping these beef stews inside of your inventory is super nice because the healer will not have any way to help you get rid of fatigue, but these items will lower your fatigue really, really well. They'll do a great job of lowering your fatigue. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this next part of this video. So the next part, I'm actually going to jump ahead to about level 11, right? And when I start talking about these abilities here, you'll start seeing a lot of these 3 things here, right? And then I'll also go into my own sort of breakdowns of extra abilities that you could sort of swap out some of these other abilities with, um, just to sort of see the different things you can pick up that'll be useful. Now, level 11, you can definitely pick up 3 max trainings, and there is some training stuff in here. For instance, we have Energy Mastery Flame 3, and we have Volcano Owner. Those are both 2 trainings. So if I wanted to, I have another training I could just pick up. So let me go ahead and show you off Astral Bind. So Astral Bind is a move action, and this is utility, but it also helps out with the rest of the build here, and I'll show you in a bit. So it makes the target take rigor, automatic, don't even have to roll for it. Rigor is going to make sure that mob don't move. So if you end up pulling aggro on it, it won't be able to chase after you. You can safely continue pelting it from range. It's super, super nice. Got to make sure you hit them with some damage though, because if not, it gets removed. We got Prediction. Prediction's right under it. Prediction says you use this skill whenever you make after you make a hit check. You can choose to roll any number of die you rolled for that check. So say you rolled really low on some of them, and you want to get them to roll again. Or for instance, say you rolled a 6 on one of them, and you have like 4 other dice you can potentially roll here. If you pick those other dice and you roll them and you get another 6, you just roll 2 6s, that's a crit. Remember, this system works off of a d6 system, so you're rolling nothing but d6s. 2 6s is a crit. The only way that the enemy is going to beat a crit is if they also roll a crit. So that's very unlikely for the enemies, because most times they're rolling at max 3 dice, and usually they're rolling 2 dice. Sometimes they don't even have dice to roll. Sometimes they just have fixed stats. So very good ability here. 3 times per scenario, more than enough. You won't need more than that. Another thing is, it only costs you 1 skill point to pick this ability up, just how it only costs you 1 skill point to pick up Astral Bind. Very nice. Alright. Scrying. This is a very useful help team ability. Preparation, so you can use it before battle. Otherwise, it would take a major action timing. It allows you to perform enemy identification against one enemy whose name you know. So enemy identification will give you a bunch of information about this creature. Basic. This will give you the rank, tag, initiative, and status. Basically, it tells you how quickly they're going to attack, potentially, if they have any buffs or weaknesses on them, what their tags are, so if they're mobs or not, and the rank difficulty of the enemy. All of these things are really, really good to know, and they can help drastically change the fight. For instance, if you know it's a mob tagged enemy, well then, as a mage, you can hit them with Death Cloud. As a sorcerer, you can hit them with the Death Cloud right here. And it's a wide 1, so you can hit like a large group of enemies, and just, boom, they're all dead. Very nice. Mass Analyze, it's similar to Scrying, where it just helps you look at a bunch of things all at once. Right here. You can use enemy identification with target wide 20. So it's similar to this, right? But this one allows you to hit like basically everybody on the field with it. Also very nice. I would say Scrying probably better on a boss that you've sort of gotten hints of. Say like you're going through a crypt, right, and you see all these cryptic messages about some sort of say like a vampire prince or something. You know his name. Well, then you can use scrying to sort of like figure out more about that guy. Meanwhile, mass analyze, say you're going through that same cavern and you figure that there's a bunch of enemies in the distance. Well, you can use mass analyze to figure that out pretty easily. Figure out stuff about them. Elemental Shell, basically gives you like a cancel element of a certain type, and it's like a big shield. So 40, and you can use it 3 times scenario. Preparation, you can use it whenever you're about to fight somebody. So if you know that this enemy's going to do a lot of fire damage, pop on the cancel flame 40. They're never going to damage you. That is like a huge, huge shield. 40 damage, early level, or even around level 11 is still super good. Pick this thing up early level though, like around the first couple levels, man, you'll be doing great. Especially since you get to pick from each of the different elements. Like every element you can just pick, and if you know about them and like what they're gonna do, what damage they're doing, it's just really great to pop on, and just basically take no damage. And you can even use it on other people too, because the target's single. So that's really good too. Fly. Fly is another one of those help the team abilities. The Sorcerer has so many good help the team abilities. It is really insane. The amount of help the team abilities they have. Fly is great at character rank 11, similar to how later on invisibility they can also pick up at character rank 11. They can make like the whole team invisible. And fly, they can make everybody have fly. Super, super good. It's insane. It's really crazy. Just imagine like everybody's got to cross this like huge crevice in the earth, and it's like, well, what can we do? Maybe try to throw a rope across a tree on the other side. Maybe try to make some athletic jumps across. Then you step up as the sorcerer and is like, no guys, I got this. And then you just start casting fly on everybody, and you just Peter Pan your way over there, and it's just super super easy. Like this thing, fly makes the game so much easier. Definitely recommend picking that up. Even if it's just one skill point, like how right here we only have 1 point in it, you just save it for that one point in the game where you need it. Mage Hand, very useful for safely removing traps and other objects that are just not safe to be near. There's plenty of props and gimmicks in this game that just have harmful effects that affect the radius around them. And with Mage Hand, you can really reach out and not have to deal with that at all. So basically, you prop disable with range 4 squares, which is super far away, and you get a plus 1d6 bonus to the disable check, which is very nice. Also, if your GM is cool, you can use Mage Hand in some interesting roleplay ways, similar to how you probably use it in like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Magical Pocket. This is a very nice one. You can target one person 2 times a scenario, and just after you roll on the exhaustion table item or money, you can just make that roll 0, and you get a +1 bonus to your starting fate points, which, of course, the fate points you can spend on spell maximize to make you do even more damage if you want to use that on that. The fate points are also very versatile. Use them to re-roll rolls, or re-roll specific die, or even add a die before you even make the roll in the first place. Very, very useful. Very cool. Let's see. So I went ahead and put some extra points in the spell maximize for nuking down bosses. Death Cloud is innate. Arch Spell. Arch Spell is in. So whenever I start talking about these next abilities, I want you to keep in mind there is another ability that is called Double Set in the common tree. Honestly, I would probably take some points out of maybe the Elemental Shield ability. Yeah, Elemental Shell. I'd probably take some points out of Elemental Shell and maybe put at least 1 point into Double Set, because Double Set is very good. It doesn't sound very good, but it is very good. its tags are general and swift. Swift means that you can use this at the same time as like another setup action. That's timing setup. So once you pop double set, you may immediately use 2 timing setup actions. What this means is you can set up some crazy combos later on, especially with the Sorcerer. And there's a bunch of other classes that actually have a bunch of setup abilities too, like Kanagi. So double set's really good for Kanagi too. So basically, with Arch Spell, it reduces all the hate costs of all your actions you perform this round to 0. Now, this allows you to, 1, do big damage and stay alive. You set this up with something that, like Lattice Syntax, which has a hate of 3. It's also once per scenario, but a setup. And you end up changing what would be a really damaging single target ability to target wide 1. And what ends up happening is you use this with that, and your Sorcerer ends up doing big damage. And not just to a single target, but to many targets. And that's really what you're kind of looking for as this magic dealer. You want to be that nuker guy that like sort of blows up everybody, right? You can focus with certain builds with Sorcerer on very, very high damaging single target. But really, if you're trying to build a balanced party, you're going to want somebody to help you clear out the groups of mobs, right? And not just the mob tag mobs. I'm talking about like the enemies that are just sort of all over the place that should be sort of eventually coming into focus on one person, which is your tank, right? A lot of times what's going to end up happening, and I can draw a little bit here on the side of this little spreadsheet here. What's going to end up happening is this light blue, that would be your tank, right? And then there'll be like a bunch of enemies like all around. And as the rounds go on, they're gonna end up getting like closer to this guy right here because he's your tank. He's got the most hate. They're gonna want to get to him. They're gonna want to hurt him. And once they're in range of the tank, right? Like wide 1. Once they're like within wide 1, you're gonna end up noticing that they're all like the perfect distance of like 1 up, 1 to the side, 1 down, 1 over, that you can hit all of them at once. Even if they're inside of his square, exactly where he's standing on, you're going to end up noticing that you're just able to hit them all and do that much damage to basically everybody. It's going to be sick. In addition, you stay alive because hate cost is 0. So you're doing your first 2 jobs right there very, very easily. Let me talk about some of these. So Flare Arrow will work into that combo I was just sort of describing. And once I go over the rest of this, you'll see that combo sort of come to life, right? So Flare Arrow, go ahead and show you it out. It doesn't seem that too good, but the heat cost is very low, which is a good thing. Because that means you can spam it pretty reliably without worrying about threat. On its own, it's going to do a lot of damage to a single target, and it's not going to do a lot of hate. Meaning that the tank can very easily mitigate your hate if you can't mitigate it already, or the healer can also help mitigate your hate if you're having a tough time with it. But 2 hate, super manageable. You're going to be able to get off a lot of these flare arrows before you end up having to really worry about hate at all. Similar to the level 1 build, Orb of Lava, I believe, is in there. It's a target area, so it's a nice AoE for beginners, and it's hate 2. So it might not do a lot of dice damage at one point for level 1, but being that it's an area effect, it's going to help you out a lot more than you might initially. And especially at hate level 2. So anyway, back to Flare Arrow. It's got the flame tag, so it's doing flame damage. Anything with a weakness to flame is going to take extra damage. But it's going to deal SR plus 2 dice magic power. And we're putting 5 points into this. That's 7 dice, right? In addition, if the target has any bad statuses at all, any, rigor, staggered, confusion, decay, any bad statuses at all, you increase the damage of this flare arrow by the number of the bad statuses that are on the target times 4. That's huge. That's big damage, especially since the rest of your party is going to probably putting debuffs on these enemies. They're probably going to be putting like staggered, rigor, decay. They're probably going to be putting pursuit on them. They're probably going to be putting weaknesses on them. They're probably going to be putting like a bunch of stuff on these enemies, and because of that, you're going to be able to do that much more damage. The super very nice bonus effect on Flare Arrow. Alright. So, in addition to the Flare Arrow 5, we're also taking Energy Mastery Flame 3. Now, Energy Mastery is down here on the left. Energy Mastery allows us to pick from Flame, Cold, or Shock, which are the main three elements we deal with as a sorcerer. Basically, you can take this multiple times, but it's a training ability, and it's going to basically be kind of costly over the course of the game. There is a build that I've done before where it's like you've sort of got a mastery of like all the elements, but it's pretty heavy in its skill choices, and it's a little bit difficult to pull off. Not recommended for beginners. Basically, if you're trying to make like a simple build, just sort of focus on either playstyle you're looking for, so like maybe single target or AOE, or maybe focus in on like an element that you like the theme of, like ice, electricity, or flame. For Energy Mastery, you're getting an skill rank dice bonus to damage rolls of that tagged element. So for this one, we're taking Flame and we're putting all 3 points into it. So we're getting 3 extra dice on top of the 7 dice we're going to end up with. So that's 10 total damage dice, right? In addition to the target bad status. So here's where you're just noticing we're stacking damage on damage on damage. Enhanced code, obviously more damage on top of that. We already said before it's going to cost you nothing in terms of heat, so that's super good too. Sense Aura. This one's nice whenever you need to make a really nice perception check. You can pop this right before you have to make that check, and it'll help you out a lot. Perception is used a lot when you're trying to find invisible people, things that are trying to hide from you. Very nice there. Or if your GM is basically trying to have you roll any sort of very important perception check, it's very nice to have a +2 dice bonus to that. So that's just another thing that helps your team out. Retentive memory you already know about. Counter Seal is something I should talk about. I'll talk about Counter Seal afterwards. Counter Seal is like a special ability that also helps the team out, but it's a combat one. So Burn Stake 2 level 1 and Volcano Owner level 1. These are abilities you'll get way later on. Burn Stake 2 obviously have to be character rank 11 or higher. Volcanic Owner. The Volcano Owner says cancel Flame will be ineffective against your Flare Arrow and Orb of Lava. And we're only putting 1 point into this for now, but you can put 2 points in it later because it allows Burn Stake to have -1 hate, which is very nice because Burn Stake is a 4 hate ability, and that's really, really high. Now, again, this is where the combo comes into play because you want to use this probably at the same time on a really tough enemy, probably a boss and his lackeys. And you want to use that at the same time as the Arch spell, which will reduce all the hate costs of that turn to 0. So you want to pop that, and you want to pop Burn Stake. And with the area, you can change that area into Wide 1. And when you do that, it gives weakness, POW basic value to all of them. And when at character rank 11, you're going to have a hefty amount of POW base value, which is going to basically make everything die even faster. In addition to that, if they have Cancel Flame, it's not going to be effective at all against your Flare Arrow, which is going to be sick. Because now, not only have you put a weakness on them, but any defenses they have are going to not really be effective against it at all, except for their innate magic defense. And they're going to take at least 4 extra damage from the 1 bad status you put on them. And another thing I can go ahead and point out here is if you do want to put another 1 point off, you pick up Lamentation Syntax to make target single Flare Arrow into target 3. And what that does is Target 3 means you can either target 3 different enemies, or you can hit one guy 3 times, or you can like split up the damage. You get to target 3. It could be the same target, or it could be different targets. You get to do the ability 3 times basically. So you make one accuracy check, and if that succeeds, you do the accuracy check on the next guy and the accuracy check on the next guy. And when they all succeed, you do that the dice roll of damage against boom, 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 boom. It's like an Eldritch Blast from like 5th edition. It's very nice, very high damage. Um, Very good. Only 1.2. The only thing you have to worry about is the hate 3. Um, and that you're going to want a way to reduce your hate. So before I start talking about the reducing hate bit, I want to go back down to uh, where is it? Counter seal. All right. So later on, you're going to start finding a lot of enemies. You're going to start fighting a lot of enemies that have this seal mechanic, and it's similar to afflicted, where you can't get rid of afflicted as a debuff until well, rather, you can't get rid of, say, rigor or decay or staggered until you get rid of afflicted. That's how kind of the seal works. Seal works as that sort of one above all, and you can't get rid of any of your other debuffs until you get rid of. So having this ability to counter seals on cleanup is very, very useful, especially when you start fighting a lot of the enemies that do that to your tanks and healers, because it can get really nasty over time. It's just like another help the team ability, and it can even help save your life too. So it's very something you should take because it's only one ability point anyway. Alright, so now let's start talking about how to lower your hate. There's a lot of abilities you have at your disposal when it comes to lowering your hate. I'm going to go over some of them here. So in the mage category here, everybody can take this up at the top here. Twilight Mantle, the cleanup ability, SR per scene, right? Even at 1 point, once per scene, reducing hate by -2, it might not sound like a lot, but it can save your life. A lot of times when you're spamming abilities and the tank doesn't get off his taunting blow, or he's already used up one of his hate reduction abilities on, say, one of your other teammates, and you're left high and dry, and the healer doesn't have anything for you either, but -2 hate can put you below the tank, which can save your life. Another thing you can do is in the common tree here at the top, you'll notice that fake death is a 1-pointer. Once per scenario, but reducing your hate by 5 can be even better in some cases. Twilight Mantle. The only thing you have to remember is it's once per scenario. So Twilight Mantle, much more reusable with SR per scene. But, both are really good at just 1 point to put in. So when you're looking at some of these, if you're looking at survivability and say your tank is not really great at holding hate, and your healer is kind of focused too much on trying to keep everybody alive, like everybody's taking too much damage, or they're not really managing their hate properly, then that means this kind of a build might not be for you. If your party's not good at working together, you might want to swap out some of these damage abilities, like Energy Mastery Flame, maybe lower that down to like 2 or 1, and pick up 1 point of Fake Death and pick up 1 point of Twilight Mantle. They can really make the difference in turning the tide of battle when you don't have enemies attacking you all the time. Because then you've got to worry about your own health and staying alive, rather than doing your main number 1 goal, which is to do damage. Because remember, if you aren't alive, you can't do damage. Alright, that pretty much wraps it up here. Some notable things we should probably go ahead and poke at is two of the races here. Go ahead and poke at. I know some people wanted me to go ahead and talk about them. For instance, we'll start here with the foxtail. This was the first one somebody wanted me to poke at. And three-tailed energy it's a pretty interesting training ability. Basically, whenever skill would cost you a single fate point, the effect of that skill activates without you spending the fate point, and you can do that 3 times a scenario. Now what that means is, say you're fighting a boss, and you want to pop your big cooldown, which is spell maximized to do big damage. you can end up maxing out the amount of damage Spell Maximize will do using this one ability without spending much of your own hard-earned fate points. Training ability, but it is a 1 SR for 3 times a scenario. You can get basically what is 3 extra fate points. Super, super good. Very useful. Foxtail's underrated for sure. Race of Ritual is also something that's pretty nice. For instance, activation. Choose one skill with limit n, so n being any number basically, per scenario that you've already used at least once, and you recover a use of that skill. Even though this is a setup ability, this is super nice for setting up some of those other abilities over here. So like Lattice attacks and Lamentations attacks. These are both once per scenario. So being a Race of Ritual Sorcerer is actually pretty good as well. Just wanted to point that out there because those were two of the things. There's a lot of like once per scenario abilities you have, like Rock Slider and Gaseous Form. There's just a ton here. It itself is a once per scenario, but when it comes down to it, it's depending on like the situation, it could end up saving you. I mean, most of the racials aren't like it's not like one racial or one race is going to beat out the others when it comes to certain things. Like they're all pretty balanced. It's just that some of them have unique combos with other abilities that may or may not tickle your fancy. So just go ahead, poke around, see what you like, and go ahead and post it in the comments below. I'm always willing and happy to hear about pretty much everything you guys come up with. I think it's much more interesting than anything I can come up with. But also, let me know what you guys think about me making a Discord for this YouTube, because it'd be a nice way to get sort of in contact with people about sort of what they're interested in seeing. And I kind of want to get into making more content, similar stuff like this. I'm probably going to go into other classes. I've got to do some more research about uh, some of these other classes here, but I've got a pretty good idea about most of the classes here. Some of them I haven't really played with for more than a couple months, and when you're deep diving into something like this, I feel like it's really useful to have a lot more information. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you next time. Peace out.